Well, I made a little training joke this morning, which I'm going to kind of say something about, which was, here was a joke I made, and 3 of you laughed. When I asked you if you'd moved the pelvis before, and you said you had, and then I said, okay, good, so you've mastered that then, right? Because there's a million different ways to teach a training program and to put it together, but what I've found is that the first time you do something, you're a beginner, you're a novice, you're just getting your feet in the water. The second time, you have a little better orientation, and then try it 1,000 times where you might be, right? And people, in a way, and a lot of times people, depending on your relationship to your learning, you're shown something. Do you bring a lot of stuff into it from your past, or are you just like, oh, I don't know, let's just see? Like Hobart said yesterday, she got to explore, and that made her happy, right? Hobart's still in a good mood today. I don't know where she is, but she's back in the... Oh, she's sleeping now. I mean, in Tasmania, they have a different way of going about it, don't they, really? I've been there, so I know. You walk along the beach, you're all alone. It's a whole other world from where I come from, but you can walk along the beach for hours and not see another person. And it's clean, too, right? Cleanest air in the world, Tasmania. Okay, good. Go to sleep. Enjoy yourself. Don't worry. You're young. You've got time to learn this. So, but anyway. Okay, so sometimes it's good to come back through things more than once, and now we'll do something more with it, right? And also, it was probably framed differently than when you did it before, and we'll frame it again differently. But that particular experiment, well, first maybe I'll ask you, what was compelling about that? Was there anything compelling about that experiment? I'm acting like a bona fide scientist now. You went into the laboratory, you conducted an experiment, you had some results, yeah. That's worth a microphone. Thank God you said something worth a microphone, huh? All right.
Say it again. There's no point doing anything until you're absolutely, completely comfortable as a practitioner.
Okay. As comfortable as you can get in the moment.
Yeah, I suppose.
I have to say that because depending on your situation, there are people in here who are going to need time to feel completely comfortable. It's not going to, you're going to have to, it's a process. I'm happy for you that you found it so quickly. And
no, I didn't.
No, I saw you had some nice help from Lisa. Where's Lisa? Lisa, you're going to be in demand. Yeah. She was doing, and of course, that's what the staff is here for, to help. But you've just...
Yeah.
Okay. And then once, well, let's frame it like this so everybody's invited to the party. So when you're more comfortable, then how did that impact your interaction with your partner?
I was actually speaking about what I observed in Karen. So maybe Karen needs to talk about this. Because what I felt once she was comfortable.
As the recipient?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and then Jenny was helping you guys. Yeah. Okay. So you felt as a recipient that the more comfortable she got, what did that allow you to feel?
Well, to be truthful, the way that she was moving my pelvis, it actually felt as though
Don't be truthful.
Don't be truthful.
Well, it depends what you're going to say. When it got, that was fast. When it was easier for your learning, you only say what she did well. When it was easier for your learning, what was it? Were you going to say something that didn't go well?
No, something that went well.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We want to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she felt like graduated Feldenkrais practitioner. To me, I couldn't feel much difference between what you were doing and what I'd experienced with.
Oh, well, that's very nice. All right. Okay. Okay. Good. No, you probably one of your trainers has probably already introduced this idea of how we talk about other people in here. Have they? You have some guidelines about it? Somebody's usually talks about it in year one. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we don't want to make judge. What? Well, coming back to the nunnery idea, love thy neighbor as thyself, charity begins at home, all those Christian ideas, since, coming back to the nunnery metaphor, whatever. I did have more than a cracker for lunch, as someone pointed out, but yeah, we just have to be really, I didn't know what you were going to say.
Yeah.
So, okay. Because we're going to do movement observation today, and that's the same idea, is in order for it to be, we'll do it a little bit later, but in order for, have you done movement observation? Okay. And then how's that been framed? How do you describe? All right, well, I'm getting off topic. So let's hear about the FI. We'll get to that. Let's hear about the FI. What are we up to with this experiment or yesterday's experiment? Yeah, what's your name? Hi, Glenn.
One thing that came out, for me at least, was the more idea you had of the area, the easier it became to move.
As a practitioner or the recipient?
Both.
Yeah.
Like Silvana put her hands on the top of my pelvis, then the back, and I did the crutch section, and then knowing the whole area, suddenly it just went, it was like flapping around. I mean, it was... So it just, the more it seemed to be aware of it, the easier it seemed to be to move for both. And when we did the same, the other, it's like it was almost, the pelvis was almost falling over. So wasn't, no flapping. Not for Silvana, it was only me. I think it's broken. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? So, and you remember the moment yesterday when I did this, and then I took the Awareness Through Movement book, and then I looked at the preface, and then I said sentence number 1 of the preface, which is, I act in accordance to my image of myself. So I'm even wondering if this isn't going to turn out to be one of my kind of themes. I didn't have a theme when I walked in yesterday, but I'm really into it right now, this self-image stuff, because you'll see, I'm going to talk about it, I think, more and more, that there's just these holes in people's self-image. And one other thing is that's kind of related to what you're saying, Glenn, and in terms of teaching awareness through movement, this is a huge thing, which is, and in terms of exclusive or inclusive attention that we talked about yesterday, is that you give an instruction, you say, take your pelvis forward and back, right? So each person in your room, in your class, for them, that sentence means I move this or I move this. They don't think of the front and the back simultaneously. They don't think of the top and the bottom simultaneously. They think of whatever they think of, right? Or they do this, but they don't think of the side they're lying on. They don't think that when this goes forward, the other side goes back. Now, all these things are things that you can bring in as guidance of where you guide the attention until the point where you have an entire self. Because in a way, the answer to almost every awareness through movement, almost, there's a few exceptions, is once you have your entire self, the movement is easy, pleasurable, aesthetically nice, right? That's the answer to all the Feldenkrais koans. And you had a little piece of that because somehow she didn't have pubic bone, and you didn't have I don't know which part, but you know, once it got filled in a three-dimensional way, then what you could do changed on the spot. I think that's amazing. Amazing. You know, I love this method. Did you get that idea yet? You know, after 30 some years, I mean, I just love it because we come in at such a different angle with things. That's so empowering for people compared to, oh, you're stiff, you're this, you're that, you're, you know, you're tight, you're uptight, you're, I mean, people come to me and they say, well, I went to the chiropractor and he told me I was tense, and I went here and they told me I was, you know, I mean, they just have a litany of terrible things that people have told them, you know, and we come to me, I'll tell you, you're brilliant, right? So anyway, but that was the experiment, is you do a movement and then you clarify for the person something in the self-image. And then you go back and you do the movement and you see how it made a difference. So anybody else want to?
To follow on from that, because twice I was really aware of my spine after the pelvis started moving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like, not only was I more aware of my pelvis, but then I had a connection to the spine as well.
Right.
I don't think I often am aware of that whole connection. So.
Okay, so we're, you know, because that's another experiment where to differentiate the pelvis from the lower ribs. Okay, well, we could put that on our list. Okay, because when you delineated, we'll. I don't want to do it today. I want to do the other experiment today, though. They're just all experiments, right? Good. So we'll do one more experiment before we go on. But because when the person inadvertently clarified for you the top of your pelvis, at the same time, the bottom of the ribs are there. And so probably there was some differentiation between your pelvis and your ribs. Maybe we'll look at it in ATM today. And then since the ribs are attached to the spine, once that got free, one thing led to another, let's say. And on and on. Yeah, yeah.
That one thing leading to another. I'm sure I have so much more to go, but when I got in a better position and was using my arm in a better way than I was before, and I was touching a similar sort of movement, but with my touch, without thinking about it, I could feel like ages ago we did a head rolling one where you feel the skin, then the bone, then the head at the back of the floor and the floor rolling. And I could feel the bone at the bottom on the floor without looking for it. It just came to my attention once I was in this position. So then I was thinking, what else could just, once I get better and better at this, just come without me having to search for it, without having an intention to find the bone on the ground? Or is that a bit?
I think... Sounds good to me. I don't know, you know, it sounds like a fun day. It sounds like, you know, even though I said I didn't take a lot of drugs, but if I had taken the drugs, then I would have had an expanded view of the universe. And it sounds like you did too. So
without any drugs either.
Yeah. So, but look, you know, Julie and I, one thing I know is that she loves organizing principles, and I love the principles, and I mean, and everything. I love the principles more than the drugs. So the principle there is you went from exclusive attention, which would be that pelvis there. I'm going to try really hard to be really good moving that pelvis there, and I'm going to put all my attention on it. To there's the pelvis, there's my hand, there's my spine, there's my breathing, there's my own pelvis, there's their pelvis, and I'm expanding, I'm including more, and I'm expanding, I'm including more, and the effort is going down, 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 and all of a sudden, there's a lot there. And eventually, you can go from any point and get through the whole person's skeleton. You know, it just keeps going. That's the direction. And it's terrible. I mean, it's interesting. Right? Because if I told you to feel that, this kind of comes back to to, again, Tasmania saying, with the idea of intention. And I said, well, it's great to have an intention, but it can backfire. Because I think if I would tell you, from there, you got to feel this, you got to feel this, you got to feel this, you would have tried to feel it, right? But instead, you just kept organizing yourself more and more and more so that you could include more and more and more. Well, anytime you're doing hands-on, you can remind yourself of that. If it's not fun, for whatever reason, I mean, I was once young like you in Amherst doing FI. I hated it, actually, because I thought I was supposed to be really good. And I thought I was supposed to be really good the first time I tried it. I mean, that is such a way not to have fun. Really. So not fun. Instead of, just feel my breathing, be here. And anytime, a couple of times by mistake, I did have fun, but it was because I was, I was, whatever, just by mistake, I had a good time. So yeah, because I was in my whole self and my breathing was free. And then I noticed something interesting, right? All right, good. So you want to do another experiment? Any last words on this FI practice? Yeah.
Just on a similar level than what Greg said.
Glenn.
Just earlier.
Is it Glenn or Greg?
Glenn, sorry. I'm bad with names.
Glenn, yeah.
My partner had his hand on the whole sacrum, and we were more showing just working on one side of the hip and pelvis. And he was including my whole sacrum.
Yeah.
I found that actually quite an amazing experience. It grounded me immediately to my whole pelvis, to the surface I was lying on. It just gave me, I didn't even think when I worked on him to include the other side.
Well, because Margaret said just do the top. So,
yeah, but it was the experience it gave me. Then I actually could perceive the whole movement, my whole self moving. It was
there has to be, there has to be a very big neurological event having your structures touched in this way that's different than me saying, take your pelvis right and left and feel your sacrum, and or just, it is just so loaded with information, isn't it? And it can feel all something really just, and that's a wonderful thing about FI is we give, I mean, FI and ATM are very related in terms of many things, and yet they're not exactly the same. And that's one of the big differences, isn't it? It just loaded you with information, not to mention you've got some very important nerves coming out of the sacral area. And I mean, the sacrum. We have any cranial sacral people here that trained in that? Yeah. So you guys know it's a lot of stuff going on there, huh? It's a very important area, loaded with information. But there's also places in between the sacrum and the cranium that are worth, knowing about. All right, same partner. Now, so let's do a different experiment. And I don't care which side you work with, but you take the shoulder forward and back, and then the pelvis forward and back, and then the shoulder forward and back. That's the new ABA, okay? If along the way you feel like clarifying a little bit their structure, don't spend an hour on it. But I mean, if you're, or Margaret, maybe they should get a different partner, actually. I think you should get a different person. Yeah, so you already know this other person too well now after touching the pubic bone like that. So, all right. Don't touch their pubic bone in this practice now. But take the pelvis, so shoulder forward and back, pelvis forward and back. But again, like you started to say in the beginning of this discussion, just without touching the pubic bone, but just if I'm here and I know this structure, that I'm also talking to that, right? It makes a big difference. Okay. Shoulder, hip, and back to the shoulder. And if with that particular person, let's say you could do a couple of clarifications of skeletal parts, but don't do everything, okay? You pick the things that are strongest. And I'm not going to, does that make sense to you in terms of what we've been doing for today and yesterday? Pick a couple things and put them in. If you put in everything but the kitchen sink, then, all right. Good, have fun. New partner, one side, shoulder, pelvis, shoulder.